Salutations. Allow me to begin this fireside chat with a passage from James Conley's essay, Socialism and Religion. The main reason why socialists fight shy of theological dogmas and religions is generally because we feel that socialism is based upon a series of facts requiring only unassisted human reason to grasp and master all of their details, whereas religion of every kind is adamantly based upon faith in the occurrence of past ages of a series of phenomena inexplicable by any process of mere human reasoning. Obviously, therefore, to identify socialism with religion would be to abandon at once that universal, non-sectarian character, which today we find indispensable to working class unity, as it would mean that our members would be required to conform to one religious creed as well as to one specific economic faith. A course of action we have no intention of entering upon, as it would inevitably entangle us in the disputes of the warring sects of the world, and thus lead to the disintegration of the Socialist Party. Socialism, as a party, bases itself upon its knowledge of facts, of economic truths, and leaves the building up of religious ideals or faiths to the outside public or to its individual members if they so will. It is neither free thinker, nor Christian, Turk, nor Jewish, Buddhist, nor idolater, Islamic, nor Parsi. Socialism is only human. Now, I'm going to bring up a passage from Thomas Paine's Age of Reason. I do not believe in the creed professed by the Jewish church, by the Roman church, by the Greek church, by the Islamic church, by the Protestant church, nor any church that I know of. My own mind is my own church. All national institutions of churches, whether Jewish, Christian, or Islamic, appear to me no other than human inventions set up to terrify and enslave mankind and monopolize power and profits. I bring these passages up because the folks who need to hear it the most are the people who term themselves as MAGA communists, basically the infrared crowd. Last night I got into a heated discussion with a theocratic meathead associated with infrared who feels threatened by the fact that, despite not being an atheist, some might term me as a pagan, although I prefer to call my personal belief structure esoteric Catholicism, not to be confused with Greek or Latin Catholicism. That I'm vehemently opposed to mainstream organized religion, and my position is that we need to dismantle 50 years worth of extreme right-wing CIA state-sponsored indoctrination interfused with American Christianity. I was called a radical liberal for speaking out against the long-term and well-documented abuses of state-sponsored organized religion and got booted out of the Facebook chat called the Thomas Paine Institute for speaking out against theocracy as, Thomas Paine would. I'm not a radical liberal. I'm not an NGO socialist. I'm not a Bernie bro. I'm not a manufactured leftist. I'm an anti-monarchist Republican who is a historian that listens to heavy metal. And as a historian, I will tell you that the leading cause of external death among the poor and working classes for over 1,000 years has been attributed to state-sponsored organized religion. Between the Crusades, the Inquisition, the First Islamic Conquest, the Timurid Empire murdering 17 million people, destroying India, the discovery of the Americas, and it all wasn't germ warfare either. The colonization of Africa, the colonization of Asia, Tsarist pogroms against the Jewish, the Vatican bankrolling and profiting from the Holocaust via selling Generali insurance policies owned by working class Jewish to Nazi Germany-owned companies, the Cold War against godless communism, killing some 3 million Vietnamese and 4 million Koreans, the Vatican and the Anglican Church funneling dark money to death squads in Nicaragua to kill godless commies, and the War on Terror, which effectively was the 10th Crusade. State-sponsored organized religion has been the favorite propaganda tool of monarchs and industrialists and aristocrats to justify austerity, social repression of the proletariat, and mass slaughter of different-looking peoples who don't believe or who believe in a different God or who don't believe in God at all. The conservatives say that, communism killed 100 million people, but tend to overlook the fact that for the past 1,000 years, state-sponsored organized religions killed at least 10 times as many people that are attributed to Mao and Stalin combined. There is a good reason for why Enver Hoxha, when he came into power in Albania, the first thing he did, without discrimination, was shut down all the houses of worship because they undermined the secular socialist ideology of Albania. We do not need to go to that extreme, but we need to firmly establish a line between state and organized religion. That line, since Ronald Reagan's presidency, has been blurred. What Voshes to the left, Pat Robertson, Billy Graham, John Hagee, and the former Pope John Paul II were and still are to the right. They are not friendly with the concept of Marxism and have preached that the dialectical historical method is on par with Satanism. For 50 years, Americans have been indoctrinated on a religious level to believe that Marxism and communism is the ideology of the Antichrist. They have also been indoctrinated to believe that homosexuality is a sin, despite the Ten Commandments, which supposedly comes from God, not explicitly mentioning anything about homosexuality. And they are religiously indoctrinated to believe that cultural diffusion is the work of the devil, despite not realizing that most of the technological innovations relative to Western civilization came as a byproduct of cultural and social diffusion in the old world. Gunpowder and noodles came from China. Astronomy, algebra, trigonometry, advanced mathematics, architecture, and farming all came from the Middle East and Africa. This is why I have my differences with MAGA communism. When engaging with the religious right, I do not pander to the commonplace tropes that come with CIA-sponsored Cold War Christianity. While I'm opposed to extreme liberalism and rainbow capitalism, I am very adamant in my support for the LGBTQ community who are outside the parameters and who are opposed to rainbow neoliberalism. And I will not tolerate anyone who believes that the LGBTQ community is satanic because their pastor on a CIA payroll told them such. While I am opposed to synthetic intersectionality, I am not opposed to organic cultural diffusion, so long as such yields better material conditions for the proletariat and dismantles racism interwoven into our economic structure and infrastructure. While I have an extreme dislike for left-wing communists and anarchists, I will not play into the right's disingenuous belief that they are bankrolled by supposed globalist communists like George Soros as communists, because George Soros, who worked in tandem with John Paul II and Ronald Reagan in dismantling the Soviet Union and expanding the neoliberal economic system into Eastern Europe. I do not cater to the flawed beliefs of Cold War Christians who, in word and in deed, supported 20 years ago, George W. Bush's immoral war on terror, which collectively killed well over 1 million brown people, mostly Islamic, in Iraq and Afghanistan to steal their oil and their opium. Okay, unless MAGA communism is actively working to dismantle and mitigate the damages of over half a century worth of CIA-sponsored Cold War Christianity created to undercut labor movements through self-imposed austerity and enforced rigid conformity, cultural stagnation, and rejecting publicly sponsored infrastructural development on the grounds that Marxism and socialism is the religion of the devil. They are not putting foam on the electrical fire created by a multi-generational psychological operation. They are attempting to throw water onto that fire, and they are potentially making the problem worse by catering to these folks who have been deliberately led astray by the very deep state they are attempting to bring down, which they think is communism, when no, it's not. You do not win people over to anti-imperialism when you play into state-sponsored religious tropes that reinforce the imperialistic modus operandi of the Anglo-American bourgeois and landed aristocracy. You win people over when you break them out of their deep state programming and make them understand that they have been lied to by many a charlatan like Billy Graham and Pat Robertson and those stupid Left Behind books, which eerily paint the end of days on being on par with the creation of a supposedly socialist one-world government administered by the United Nations and ran by a socialist dictator that they label as the Antichrist, especially when we know that the United Nations is not at all a socialist organization, but an organization that manages the international affairs of the bourgeois and seeks to grant unlimited power to privately owned multinational corporations through Malthusian economic programs as a means to monopolize all the modes and means of production on Earth in the name of sustainable development. The correct method to take is a socially centrist line, divorced from the culture war, which rejects both extreme social liberalism and extreme social conservatism. We are neither a restrictive theocracy, as conservatives desire, nor are we a hedonistic anarchy that the liberals desire. Cold War Christianity, in tandem with postmodern neoliberalism, are toxic and have been artificially manufactured by the bourgeois as a means to pit the proletariat against each other, and it is up to us to diffuse what is potentially brewing into a civil war as economic and materialistic conditions continue to decline, and not continue fanning the flames of toxic ideological dogmas, whether they be religious or secular, like how both Vosh and, I'm sorry to admit it, Haas do, who both represent the right wing and left wing of controlled opposition. And if you ever read Mao's little red book, Mao in his own words, those with a rightist way of thinking make no distinction between the enemy and us and take the enemy for our own people. They regard as friends the very persons whom the broad masses regard as enemies. Those with a left way of thinking magnify contradictions between ourselves and the enemy to such an extent that they take certain contradictions among the people for contradictions with the enemy and regard as counter-revolutionary persons who are actually not counter-revolutionaries. Both these views are wrong. Neither can lead to the correct handling of the question of suppressing counter-revolutionaries or to a correct assessment of this work. So in conclusion, I'm going to tell the breadtube folks to piss off. I'm not a Nazbol, or whatever terms you stupid kids pull out of your asses every minute. Free market liberalism linked to holy wars is not a conspiracy theory. It's been going on for well over 1,000 years. Instead of reading more books on gender, queer theory, or whatever the hell you kids read these days, why not read a few books on the Crusades? And then get back to me, you stupid, angsty kids. And now I'm going to tell the MAGA communists who have a problem with me, because I know not all of them have a problem with me, but there are some who do have a problem with me, who accuse me of being a synthetic leftist for being opposed to state-sponsored organized religion seeped in the blood of imperialistic genocide, so much blood that it could fill the entire Mediterranean Sea. to also piss off. You're no better than BreadTube. In fact, you're the same exact thing. But instead of wokeness, you use organized religion as an excuse to fan the flames of the culture war instead of putting those flames out like how you are supposed to. Why don't you read Gibbon's Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, all 6 volumes, like I did when I was about, I was 21 when I did that, okay? You read all 6 volumes of them, and you'll learn all about how peaceful religion is, okay? Yeah, read that, and then get back to me. I make no war upon those who wish to learn and adopt my methodology to defend long-term state-sponsored imperialistic indoctrination through both church and university instruction, which has been going on since the Reagan era. But I have very little interest in making America great again, because I want to make America revolutionary again. And the only way to do so, is to declare war on both flanks, left and right, of the culture war itself, and not feed into them. That is all. God save our American state. This is Comrade Pella signing out.